Syntax of the Soul episode. For what lives beyond the mind. The mind is our greatest tool and our greatest trap. It builds cities and solves equations. It composes symphonies and reasons through riddles. It writes poems, predicts weather, sends satellites to space. It holds memories, makes judgments, and imagines futures that haven't yet arrived. And yet, in its brilliance, the mind also creates illusions. It clings to certainty. It loops in fear. It divides what is whole. It names what is nameless. So the question arises, if you are not your mind, then what lives beyond it? This is not a rejection of thought, but an inquiry into its limits. Because thought, for all its genius, has borders. It ends where silence begins, and beyond that silence, something waits. Some call it consciousness, some call it spirit, some call it presence, source, or soul. This episode is about that threshold, the edge of thought, and what we discover when we step past it. Not to escape thinking, but to find the place from which all thinking arises. We begin with what feels obvious. Most people believe they are their minds. That voice narrating everything in your head? That's me. The opinions, the memories, the reactions, that's who I am. But there's a glitch in this narrative. If you can observe your thoughts, if you can notice your mind working, then who is doing the noticing? And if your thoughts change and your emotions shift and your beliefs evolve, what part of you remains? This question has haunted mystics, monks, scientists, and seekers across centuries. In Western philosophy, René Descartes famously said, "I think, therefore I am." But even Descartes had to start with doubt. He questioned everything until only the thinking self remained. But he never asked, who is it that knows thinking is happening? In Eastern thought, the answer comes more clearly. You are not your thoughts. You are the awareness in which thoughts appear. In Advaita Vedanta, the teachings say, you are not the body, you are not the mind, you are not the roles or memories, you are the witness of all of it. In Buddhism, particularly in Zen, thoughts are likened to clouds passing through the sky. The sky is awareness. The clouds are temporary. They do not define you. And in modern neuroscience, things get even more complex. The self that you think you are, the one that speaks, reacts, and makes choices, is increasingly understood not as a stable entity, but a process. A constantly shifting pattern of activity across brain regions. There's no single place in the brain where you exist. The mind is an orchestra without a conductor. So if the mind is not you, and the brain is a symphony of processes, then what is the thing that watches it all unfold? What is the space in which the mind moves? Let's return to direct experience. Sit in silence for a moment. Close your eyes. Let thoughts come and go without interference. Now, notice that even as thoughts arise, there is a stillness behind them. You are aware of the thought, but not caught by it. That stillness, that spaciousness, is not made of thought. It holds thought. And that may be the first glimpse of what lives beyond the mind. It's not a thing, not an object, not a person. It's not even you in the way you normally use that word. It is awareness. And it cannot be observed because it is the observer. It doesn't judge. It doesn't speak. It simply is. And here's where language begins to fall apart. Because the mind wants to define this. It wants to name it, explain it, reduce it. But what lives beyond the mind is not accessible to the mind's tools. You cannot think your way to it. You can only remember it. Or better yet, you can stop forgetting. In every quiet moment, it's there. In every pause between thoughts, it shines through. It is what's left when the noise stops. And it's always been with you. To move beyond the mind, we must first understand how the mind operates. The mind thrives on patterns. It sees in stories. It learns through contrast, repetition, and categorization. It evolved to keep us safe, to notice the predator, remember the wound, anticipate the fall. But in doing so, it creates a constant commentary, a world of labels, fears, comparisons, judgments. The mind doesn't just observe life, it interprets it. And in that interpretation, it often filters out the mystery. Let's explore this through neuroscience and psychology. In brain science, the prefrontal cortex, the seat of reasoning and decision-making, works closely with the amygdala, emotion, and hippocampus, memory. Together, they form the triad of perception, evaluation, and storytelling. When you experience a moment, say hearing your name spoken unexpectedly, your mind instantly constructs meaning. Who said that? What do they want? Do they like me? Am I in trouble? It's automatic, instantaneous. You didn't choose the thoughts. They arrived. And this is the first truth to confront. You do not create most of your thoughts. They arise like weather. They are conditioned by biology, culture, trauma, and habit. The default mode network, which we explored in earlier episodes, is especially active when the mind is not engaged externally. This is when the voice starts looping. This is when memories replay, when futures are imagined, when the inner judge and planner awaken. But there's more. The ego, in psychological terms, is not a villain. It's the structure that forms a sense of self. It gives coherence to identity. It helps you navigate the world. But when left unchecked, it starts to believe it is the world. It clings. It defends. It fears. And yet, the mind is only a fragment of consciousness. Even in science, we are beginning to discover that consciousness is not reducible to brain activity alone. Neuroscientists struggle to explain how electrical signals give rise to subjective experience, what David Chalmers calls the hard problem of consciousness. Some propose that consciousness is a fundamental property, like space or time. Some turn to quantum physics for answers. Some look toward Eastern traditions. In Tibetan Buddhism, Rigpa is the term for pure, non-dual awareness. It's not the mind, it's the clear light behind it. In Dzogchen practice, the goal is not to change the mind, but to see it clearly, like watching waves in a crystal-clear lake. In Christian mysticism, the practice of contemplative prayer leads to the same result. Not more thinking, but resting in God's presence, not as concept, but as living awareness. So what if the goal is not to control the mind, but to shift your identity away from it? Instead of saying, "I am thinking," you recognize, "Thoughts are arising." Instead of, "I am anxious," you realize, "Anxiety is moving through me." You become the sky, not the weather. This shift, from identification to observation, is the beginning of freedom. But what lives beyond that freedom? When the thoughts subside and the sense of I begins to dissolve, what remains? This is where language begins to tremble. Beyond the mind is presence, not a person, not a performance, just pure being. Presence is not an achievement, it is a recognition, a return. It does not come with fireworks or enlightenment fantasies. It comes in the quietest moments. Watching a tree sway in silence, holding eye contact with someone you love, sitting alone in the morning light, walking without headphones, breathing without chasing anything. In these moments, the mind slows, the voice dims, and presence is effortless, open, eternal. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't need to be believed. It was there before the thought. It will be there after the mind stops speaking. And in that stillness, something wakes up in you. Not the thinker, not the self-image, but the witness, the space, the source. And maybe, just maybe, what lives beyond the mind is not something far away. Maybe it is what you've been all along. To ask what lives beyond the mind is not a question of escape, it's a question of return. Because the truth is, you've already touched it. There have been moments, fleeting, fragile, when the thinking stopped. Not because you forced it, but because something else took over. You stared at the night sky and forgot your name. You lost yourself in a piece of music that brought tears to your eyes. You stood beside someone dying and felt time collapse. You held your newborn child and realized words were useless. These were not intellectual moments. They were encounters with something vast, sacred, real, and utterly beyond the mind's machinery. And yet, you were more yourself in those moments than ever before. What does that say about who you truly are? Presence is not theoretical, it's embodied. It arises when you drop beneath the storyline, beneath the labels, beneath the need to fix or name or explain. It is not about becoming someone else. It is about finally resting as the one who never needed to change. This isn't detachment. This isn't indifference. It's intimacy with what is. Because beyond the mind, life is not experienced as a problem to be solved, but a miracle to be met. The Zen masters say, before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. Nothing changes, and yet, everything is different. Because when the mind no longer dominates, you begin to feel life directly. You taste your food. You hear the wind. You see someone's eyes and recognize yourself. And when fear comes, it doesn't define you. When thoughts return, you let them pass. You are no longer entangled. You are aware. Now here's where the inquiry gets even deeper. If what lives beyond the mind is pure presence, if that awareness is constant, then what does that make you? Is the you that's worried, performing, comparing, striving, just a role? Is the mind the actor, and awareness the stage? And if so, what happens when you no longer mistake the actor for your true self? You become something else, still human, still tender, still wounded sometimes, but anchored in something deeper. Some call it soul, others call it pure being. Others still say it is the divine living through you. Whatever language we use, it points to the same knowing. You are not your mind. You are not the voice in your head. You are not your thoughts, your roles, your strategies, or your stories. You are the silence that hears them. You are the space in which they rise and fall. You are the presence that was never born and will never die. This realization does not require effort. It only requires remembrance. To remember that your essence is not thought. It is awareness, not as an idea, but as a direct experience. Every time you pause, every time you breathe, every time you watch your mind without becoming it, you are remembering what lives beyond the mind. It's not elsewhere. It's not waiting for you. It is you. So as this episode ends, don't try to grasp this with your intellect. Just sit. Just be. Notice the voice. Then notice the space it speaks in. That space is you. That's what lives beyond the mind. And it has always been home. Next time on the Syntax of the Soul series, we explore, can the soul be touched by time? Until then, stay curious, stay conscious. If this stirred something inside you, subscribe, like, and share this with a fellow seeker.